Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day as we continue to celebrate all the amazing people across the state of Mississippi who are working so hard in the trenches to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. We have a great show today. I wanted to give you a quick update. A bill on Monday unanimously, passed the House. And it's an important one. It's going to deal with the issue of seafood integrity. We've talked about it since a couple of Biloxi businessmen pleaded guilty to the federal case for selling foreign fish as Gulf fresh seafood. There's a wonderful bill that's working its way through, and essentially it says farm raised and domestic. If raised and processed in the United States, it has to be labeled accordingly. Wild caught, domestic. If caught in U.S. waters, and in foreign, if hatched, raised, caught, or processed outside the U.S. And I'm thrilled that that's working its way through. And Chris Nelson from Bon Secours Fisheries over in Alabama, who's been on the show several times talking about this, said that there is actually a regional and national issue. This is actually gaining some traction regionally and nationally. And he thinks we might have actually reached a tipping point as it relates to bringing seafood integrity back to the conversation with a real focus on protecting domestic so that people will eventually understand that there is maybe a premium price on Gulf fresh seafood. And I'm thrilled to see that that's happening. You may have seen or heard me talk about a column I wrote recently about economic development here in coastal Mississippi. Coastal Mississippi is an important economic engine for Mississippi. But I went back as we kind of lead into today's show. I wanted to capture historically what some really, really famous people have said about economic development. And the first one was a quote from John F. Kennedy. He said, "The economic growth cannot be achieved without a strong emphasis on education and training. The future of our economy depends on the skills and capabilities of our workforce." Winston Churchill said, "The price of greatness is responsibility. It is our responsibility to foster economic development to ensure a prosperous future to our citizens." Ben Bernanke, the former Fed chairman, "A strong economy is the foundation of a strong society. Economic development creates jobs, fosters innovation, enhances the quality of life for its citizens." I thought this one from Mandela is really, really good. It says, "Overcoming poverty is not a task of charity. It's an act of justice. Economic development is the key to providing people the opportunities that they deserve." And I could go on from there. I think if you go through history, it's been proven that the role that economic development plays, especially in a state like Mississippi, I think a rising economic tide lifts all boats. That's why I repeatedly talk about Governor Tate Reeves having a legacy. I think his legacy is well established already as an economic development governor. And when I look at what he's done, when I look at the things that's happening in this state that's causing Mississippi to win on a national scale, I see a couple of really key reasons. I think, first of all, that Governor Tate Reeves is fostering really a favorable business environment in Mississippi. And I think that will lead to, and he believes strongly, to increased employment opportunities for Mississippians. And I think he's driven by that. I think he understands that we've got to invest in infrastructure and that that's the foundation of economic growth. And that's essential to attracting business and also, frankly, enhancing the quality of life here. I think he's advocated hard for education improvements and training programs. And we'll be talking here shortly about the kind of jobs that are going to be high demand industries here in Mississippi. It's a phenomenal story. I think he's emphasized entrepreneurship and innovation and the reasons why in the midst of all the big stuff, we got to focus on small business. And then there are the tax incentives and financial tools that we can use in Mississippi. And then, of course, the big discussion that's happening in this state now about eliminating the state income tax. It's deep, difficult, complicated, extremely competitive business. And Mississippi is performing extremely well right now. And I think the last thing, there's a long list. I could go on with that list, but the last thing I'll mention today that I think is really important, you got to build a strong team at the Mississippi Development Authority. And for that reason, that's why I'm thrilled to have my old friend. I say that because he came from Hancock County and economic development in Hancock County, been on the show a bunch of times, hasn't been on recently, but the executive director of the Mississippi Development Authority, Bill Cork, and he's going to be with me for the whole show today. Bill, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm blessed and highly favored, Ricky. It's so good to be back with you. It's like a 4-year hiatus we had, but I'm glad to be back on your show.
It is. I mean, when you look back on your time in Hancock County, does it feel like another life or just like yesterday?
It really does feel like yesterday. This last 4.5 years that I've been in Jackson has been an absolute amazing journey. But, our roots are still deep in Hancock County. A lot of friends down there. I get down there all the time. And so it's like we never left. But a lot of fond memories down there. In fact, I just moved from Hancock County to Flowood in March of last year. So I was commuting for about 3.5 years. So we try to keep our toes in the sand as long as we could.
Well, you heard those quotes that I shared, and I could have shared many others that were from extraordinary transformational leaders from around the world, understanding and appreciating the role that economic development plays. I think one of the most important things that Tate Reeves decided to do when he came in, he said, you can solve a lot of problems, you can focus on a lot of issues, and he certainly has worked to do that. But at the end of the day, he staked his claim, and he said that the fastest way to lift the tide of Mississippi is to substantially improve our efforts and our successes related to economic development. And I mean, when I say that the competition is stiff, you got to be on your game to win today. And Mississippi is winning right now, isn't it, Bill?
Well, it's true. We are winning record-setting territory, about $32 billion in capital investments since 2020, since the governor was elected. 22, almost 23,000 jobs. Just nothing like it in the past history. This is not a slam on any of the governor's predecessors. It's just there is a feeding frenzy out there in the world, and Mississippi was well prepared to take advantage of it. And it's the whole Southeast Conference really is exploding in growth, and Mississippi has really risen to the occasion. And I think, as you point out, Ricky, the governor really gets a lot of credit for this. I mean, he had a vision when he came in that he was going to be an economic development governor. He brought a team together that was uniquely focused on winning, and then he opened his mind to the possibilities of what it would take to win. In fact, in October of 2020, we sort of got through the major rush of the pandemic. We secreted the governor away to Asheville, North Carolina. And the power companies in the state had put together a group of site selection consultants, about a dozen site selection consultants or more. And we spent a day and a half together. And the governor just opened his mind and listened, said, and asked a lot of really important questions. Like, what's it going to take to win, and where are we strong and where are we weak, and how do we improve, and what are some of the suggestions, and how do I get to be the best economic development governor in America? And as you pointed out, there's a litany of things that you pointed out earlier in your monologue about what's necessary to be successful, but they gave him some very direct pointers. And there was really 5 things that they identified and told him about. Number 1 was you don't have enough product, and by that they meant you don't have enough shovel-ready industrial parks to put projects on. Okay, you don't have a branded workforce development program. You do Workforce pretty good. You've got a good track record there, but the rest of the states around you have branded, customizable training programs. You get your tax environment's really complicated. It's hard to understand. You got to be able to simplify the benefits of your incentives around taxes and the understanding of the tax environment. And the list went on and on. One of those that got resolved was, what's it take to be the best economic development governor? And the answer was pretty simple. You got to be accessible. These companies are going to invest hundreds of billions of dollars in installed capital in your state. They expect somebody to be on the other end helping to do the block and tackle of making sure that investment gets them a return. So what you saw happen after 2020, in the very next legislative session, you saw the governor advocating for our site development grant program, to advocate for product. You saw him really rise to the level with the legislature on Accelerate Mississippi to get a state-branded workforce development office. You saw MFLEX, our Mississippi Flexible Incentives tax benefits, come out to help improve our incentive program. So all the things that he heard, he came back and formulated in alignment with the legislature and our local communities, really good policy that in 2020 and 2021 positioned us for the record year we had in 2024. So you got to give credit to the legislative leadership and the governor for just wanting to win, figuring out what it takes, asking the right questions, putting the team together, and then executing. And you're seeing the results.
You know what's interesting, Bill, to me about it is you think because Tate comes into his first term, and then, of course, you had the pandemic that slows everything down. But you come out of the pandemic building momentum. And, in a normal world, you would have come out of the pandemic and it would have taken you a couple of years to get your feet back under you. That's what's so remarkable about his tenure. If you go back and look at his success for the entire tenure, and that when you factor the pandemic in, it's even more impressive. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with the executive director for the Mississippi Development Authority, my friend Bill Cork. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. Listen, I always want to say this as we come to you from the Citizens Bank studio. Appreciate the feedback. So many people watching on SuperTalk TV or YouTube or Facebook, your favorite podcast, and of course SuperTalk Radio, which radio will always be king as we come to you across this great state. We're visiting with my friend Bill Cork, who's the executive director of the Mississippi Development Authority. He and I got an opportunity to spend some time together on this show for a couple of years, actually, before he went to the MDA, because he was head of economic development for Hancock County. And I think, Bill, coming from Hancock County was a really unique position because you had some port authority, airport responsibilities, you had STENIS responsibilities. It was a great place to be to sort of get a view into Mississippi, wasn't it?
It really was. When I was recruited to come to the state and to Hancock County, I was really reluctant at first to come. And the headhunter that was doing the recruitment was out of Dallas. And I used him in a prior recruitment for a previous role that I had. And he said, this is really right up your alley. It's got everything you want. It's got all kinds of exciting new opportunities for you to learn, but also really for you to double down on your skills. It's got federal involvement in military and maritime and aviation and big industrial park plays and, a real opportunity to be successful. And one of the other things that a lot of people don't realize is that the Hancock County Port and Harbor Commission is pretty financially self-sustaining. It produces its own cash flow. And so for a local economic development unit to actually have a source of revenue to reinvest in the facilities and to reinvest in economic development is really a gift. And so, it was a great opportunity. I really loved every day that I spent there. And I think the success that we had in those 4.5 years in Hancock County really positioned me well to understand the state and the leadership here and offer a sort of a similar vision at the state level.
So you get the opportunity to move from Hancock County to the Mississippi Development Authority at a time when you've got a governor that's a monomaniac on a mission. So tell me about it. I tell you what, it might be a good idea for people who have not heard a discussion about MDA before. You might start from the beginning. What is MDA, and how does it fit in, and how does the governor use it, and what about the partnerships, and how do you work with local communities, et cetera? Kind of give the spiel on that.
Well, the Mississippi Development Authority is probably best known for its ability to recruit business into the state. And, that's where we get all the headlines. And if you look at my social media feed, that's what you see mostly involved in. And that's clearly one of the main things that we do, but we do so much more. We offer international trade services to small new to export businesses, and we take them all over the world and help them engage their products in the world. We have the state's energy office here. We are the state's tourism division. We have small and minority-owned business and contracting support. We do entrepreneurship in partnership with Innovate Mississippi. We have we've got the Welcome Home Mississippi kind of retirement program. So we just do a whole bunch of things. We're about a $400 million agency. That was our budget authorization for last year. We've got about 175 employees here, which, by the way, Ricky, is 30% fewer employees than we started with in 2020. So we're very lean, we're very mean, and we're very execution focused. And how does that fit into the overall development landscape for the state? Well, first of all, the governor is very closely attached to this. I have the title of Chief Economic Development Officer, but I think if you've listened to Tate Reeves for 5 minutes, you'll figure out that he's the Chief Economic Development Officer of the state, and he's a spectacular leader. And we take a personal interest in every deal together. I probably spend as much time with him as anybody and working closely with him on the strategies for the state. He's involved in every deal, up to date on everything that we're doing, and has been a key factor in all of our success. Absolutely, no doubt. So he's a shepherd of the economic development universe here. He's the political leader for our policy initiatives and a principal advocate for our success. And so, like I say, we meet weekly. I'll probably be with him 3 times this week, but we have a formal meeting once a week, and that's how we do the transactional work of the business. But I was with him yesterday up in Amory, doing a new boat manufacturing ribbon cutting, and we travel all over together, all over the world to bring folks to Mississippi and to promote Mississippi. And it's a great gift. He's a great boss and a good friend.
So, Bill, one of the things in preparing for today, I needed to get back up to speed on MDA. So I did some background reading and spent some time on your website. MDA played such a critical role after Hurricane Katrina. I just can't tell you how important that role was. Great partner for us in coastal Mississippi for the Governor's Commission and so on. We just had, Leland Speed was there at the time and did such a good job. One of the things that I will immediately compliment you guys on, I don't know, I haven't seen the most recent website, so I don't know how long it's been there because I haven't been to the MDA. But what I found about it was if I were the largest company in America and I wanted to really understand how MDA works, it is extraordinarily well presented from the top, and you can drill down, you can talk about incentives and sites and the whole 9 yards. You guys have put a lot of care into this website, haven't you?
We have, and we've just rolled out a new brand. We really wanted an aspirational brand that was going to speak to the world. We've been using Mighty Mississippi for the last couple of years, and we are mighty. We don't need to tell everybody that anymore. Your reputation precedes you now. So we need to look at something aspirational. So our new brand is Let's Break New Ground. Let's figure out ways to break new ground together. And Ricky, I know you're passionate about eliminating the status quo and looking forward to the future. And we share that at MDA, and the governor has really rolled this brand out and taken personal ownership of it because he's optimistic. He sees our future as being much more than what our past has ever led us to be. He knows we can win. And so now, how do we break new ground? How do we really think through these barriers and thinking and in physical delivery of services and the whole realm of things that we have control over? How do we break new ground? How do we bring partners in that share that optimism and share that enthusiasm for success? And so you'll see that if you go to our website. I'd also make a plug, I forgot to mention, and it's a big deal, but we still do disaster recovery here at MDA. It's a big part of what we do. And right now we're working through about $135 million worth of tornado relief from the Rolling Fork storms and all that. So we are still very much involved in helping communities recover. I think I just looked at a recent report to HUD. I think we're still managing about $1.5 billion worth of disaster recovery, even from Katrina. We still have Katrina money we're dealing with. So it's a huge part of what we do. But, clearly, I wish we did less of that work and more of the other work.
It's important. Of course, I've had a connection into your organization through Visit Mississippi on a regular basis. I love to talk about the way Mississippi has packaged itself. What a great destination. When you think about the Blues Trail and the other trails, Craig Ray used to refer to it as the largest open air museum in America. It's special. This place is special. And when people come here, they connect to it, whether it's a tourist visiting somewhere or whether it's a potential client coming here to want to come here. I often say this, that we all carry a bit of a burden, to dispel myths about Mississippi. And I think that Tate Reeves has done a and you and your team and others have done a pretty good job of carrying that burden with you to dispel those myths. It's fun to watch people have one thing in their mind and just see by experience something entirely different. That that's fun in a way, isn't it?
Well, it is really great fun, and you're right. I mean, especially with our foreign visitors, they know about Mississippi and really about the U.S. is what they get from U.S. media, which isn't always the best representation. But I can tell you, I've seen so many light bulbs come on, in my years here, and the people that come and visit us just immediately feel the warmth of our hospitality. They see the beauty of our state, really all parts of our state, absolutely gorgeous, and they're they're converted, and it's for lack of a better term. And I think that's really a wonderful gift to be able to offer people. And look, it happened to me when I was offered an opportunity to apply for the job in Hancock County. My first response was Mississippi, you know.
Yeah.
And my wife and I, this is a true story, Ricky. My wife and I were driving down for the interview, and we were coming down Highway 603. We crossed I-10. We were going into Waveland, and we hit the beach at Beach Boulevard, and we turned left. And my wife told me this, we hadn't even been on the coast before, had never seen it. We turned left, drove past Our Lady of the Gulf Church, and she said, "You better get this job. This is where I want to live." It doesn't take much.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
It's really, and by the way, we bought a house about 3 blocks from where she made that statement. So,
Yeah.
it's real, and I don't think we have to. I don't think we have to apologize anymore for Mississippi. I think that's one of the things, especially in economic development, we were always sort of feeling a little desperate, feeling like we were coming from behind. In many cases now we're the ones to beat, and I think that just gives you a whole different pep in your step. I think you see that with the governor and the state leadership, and everywhere you go, you sort of feel them. You feel the momentum, as the governor says.
I think when you think about state leaders, I tell you, we're at the end of this segment. I'll hold what I was going to say till we get on the other side, but we're visiting with Bill Cork, the executive director for the Mississippi Development Authority. We'll continue our conversation on the other side. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We're visiting today with Bill Cork, the executive director for the Mississippi Development Authority, and we're talking about Mississippi's really phenomenal success in economic development. And if you really want to dive deep, I would really encourage you to go to the Mississippi Development Authority website. Just put Mississippi Development Authority in your search line, and it will bring the website up. And go spend some time there. They've got a section, for example, that really zeroes in on some of the successes that we've had. You know, we hear about the data centers and tens of billions of dollars that are being invested into Mississippi. What I like about what you've done in terms of sharing your success stories and the media around those is that successes come, sometimes the small successes, the boat builders, or the various innovative efforts in Mississippi. It's not always about the big guys. You got big, you got medium, you got small, and you're proud of all of them. You've done a great job of sort of breaking those all down. What I was going to say before we went to the break, though, when you've got a governor that's focused on it, and then you can get the legislature on board with it, and everybody comes up to speed on the reality that you just don't go and raise your hand and get these things. It takes enormous work in the trenches, sometimes over years to pull some of this stuff off. When you do that, the vision is, a vision around success. And then, of course, once you start to get success, that helps for sure. Helps align people. And there's a role for everyone to play. Legislature has an important role. We as, the business community has an important role to play. But it all comes together. But at the end of the day, man, our competitors, as we said at the beginning, are burning the midnight oil, Bill. They are burning the midnight oil. And they want nothing more than for us to be complacent. I mean, that's as true as it can be, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is. And you don't have to look very far to find the answers to that solution. You'll see that Arkansas just held special sessions to change their tax policy and incentives and put together a site development program and reform its workforce strategies. Louisiana's putting together a whole statewide new strategy. They've got a new executive director of their LED over there, Louisiana Economic Development, new governor. New tax policy, new incentives, regional strategies for economic development in 5 regions. Our competitors are not resting, and I think they're worried that little old Mississippi next door is gonna take them out. And look, we're not resting either. I mean, we're having these conversations. we've evolved a lot in economic development. 5 or 10 years ago, it was sort of workforce was the driving force, and it always has been and always will be. And then product development and making sure we had these industrial parks are in place. And now I'm telling you, the next generation of issues to tackle will be things like energy, making sure we have enough power to power the new intellectual engine in our data centers, as well as the workhorse in advanced manufacturing. And it's going to mean fewer jobs, higher paying jobs, huge capital investment, huge energy. That's the future. And so, we cannot be thinking like we thought 15 or 20 years ago. We've got to be thinking about what's going to happen next. And, the governor teased this in his state of the state, where he talked about the state's energy power play. And I think you're going to be hear more and more about that from him as we move forward. We've got a lot of smart people thinking about that right now, about how do we position Mississippi to leapfrog these other states who are still trying to keep up with us. And so, we're excited about it. Makes it fun to do this job.
Yeah, of course, you mentioned Arkansas and Louisiana. I used to do business in Louisiana. Jeff Landry came in on a mission. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is extremely focused and doing a great job of aligning folks. I'm watching the Florida Panhandle. I mean, what the Florida Panhandle has been doing is incredible. And I'm extraordinarily aware of areas like Huntsville and what they're doing up in North Alabama. So, I mean, again, a lot of competition. And, you think about what I experienced as a publisher of a newspaper and then as a digital media CEO and leading major digital media change efforts, and how, in some respects, the internet was slow to kind of pick up, and eventually it started to soar. And of course, the invention of the iPhone, changed everything as it relates to news, and social media was launched and all of that. So there was an evolution, but once it caught on, digital media changed pretty rapidly. I'm watching AI now, and it won't be a slow thing. AI is here, and it is happening at lightning speed. And you can be ready. You can be ready to accept the realities of how it changes the economy, or you can let it change you. And we have really got to pay attention, don't we?
Well, the coast is, Ricky. I mean, it's right now the epicenter for a lot of excitement that's going on. I know the big data centers up north are getting some attention, but the thought leadership is really happening on the coast in a lot of ways. You've got the Mississippi Artificial Intelligence Network, which is affiliated with Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, which is on the forefront of the skills development around AI. You've got the Cyber Center at Keesler, which we just had a big kind of a groundbreaking, if you will, announcements over there, which is a partnership with Mississippi State and MGCC and a whole bunch of other folks and the Air Force to try to figure out how do we tackle cyber and AI related functions. You've also got an enormous blue economy cluster that's building on the coast with companies like Ocean Arrow and Skydweller, and all of these other companies that are related, Envision and places like that are taking all of this data and having to figure out how to manipulate it and use it to get great results. And that's all going to be AI and fuzzy logic and all the things that are associated with it. So while a lot of times the big announcements around the big CapEx projects get a lot of attention, don't sell the coast short on what they're doing in terms of the thought leadership around this. It is really an important part of our artificial intelligence and cyber infrastructure is down there on the coast, and has been really from time immemorial. So
yeah,
it's a huge part of it.
I spent a lot of time listening to what Elon Musk has to say about just about everything. So when I do my runs in the morning or go to the gym, I'm usually listening to something that involves Elon Musk and what he's thinking. And the other day I heard a terrific conversation. He was at one of the war colleges. I don't know which one, but he was talking about the changing nature, what AI is going to do to how we fight, the emergence of drones and how that's changing everything. So it's going to be very interesting to watch this. I mean, I think every dimension is going to be changed to some extent, but there's going to be a terrific opportunity for Mississippi. And that's why these data centers that we've announced are so important to our future. I don't think people really appreciate the scale of these investments. Kind of talk about that a little bit.
Well, they are huge, and we've picked a niche, particularly with Amazon, to really focus on the AI and machine learning component of this, and that's the data centers that they're building up in Madison County really are at the forefront of that. It'll be one of the largest clusters in the world when it gets built, and we're really proud of that. The capex is monumental. A lot of it is inside the guts of the building, which is the servers and the chips and all the things that make it work. I've just told you my extent of my knowledge of all this stuff, but it is just a building full of this computer gear. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that every 3 to 5 years, that's got to be replaced. So there's a whole massive, not just first cost that goes into building these things, but an ongoing evolution. And that's going to generate a continuous source of economic development benefit for the state for a very, very long time. I also think too that having a company like Amazon in the market, I took a briefing in December with the governor and the leadership about just the human impacts that these projects are having, not just the construction jobs, but they gave us a report where they showed us that they've touched over 6,000 people in the state so far, just in terms of helping to cultivate new new certifications, new training hours, that sort of thing. There's going to be a huge influence around people that touch this stuff. Everything from building the buildings to equipping the buildings to managing the HVAC systems to engineering the systems to the life cycle maintenance of these things. And then ultimately we hope the spill-off effect will be edge data centers and additional high-tech companies that come and want to be proximate to these big things. So it's already happening. I mean, even before the first server gets turned on in the first data center, AWS has touched over 6,000 people, and that number is growing. We've got an RF, kind of an industry proposal out for institutions of higher learning, where we have $10 million set aside to grant to institutions of higher learning, both public and private in Mississippi, to help find ways to take the thought leadership to the next level. So we built that kind of thinking into the special session for AWS. And now because they're here and they've kind of broke the seal on the state, everybody's here. Everybody's looking. All the brands that you can think of, which I can't really discuss most of it, but you can guess, they're all here. And they're all trying to figure out how to get a piece of the action here, because it's just a very permissive environment, very business friendly. Speed is on the governor's lips every time he talks about economic development, and that's what these companies want. So we're very happy to see. We're very happy to see this happen. For a long time, and I've even spoken about this, about the level of interest we have in supporting technology-based companies in Mississippi, but we have a scale issue. If you just look at all of our universities and how many engineers they produce, and then you compare that to a place like Ohio or Illinois or Texas or places like that, the numbers are just so much smaller. So what we had to do is figure out what is going to be our place in tech to start. And these data centers are a really good foundation to get that going.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Bill Cork from the Mississippi Development Authority. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. You can tell as we come to you from the Citizens Bank studio that Bill Cork and I are excited about what's happening in Mississippi. And it's real. It's as real can be. And listen, I have a very critical eye. I mean, if I feel like we weren't there, I'd find a nice way to say we're not there. But in the case of Tate Reeves' legacy, it's very, very clear that he is focused and he's got a team around him. Bill is a leader in that effort as well. And we're having success in Mississippi. One of the things I want to mention is that in my conversations, Joe Max Higgins is regular member of my guests. And what they're doing in the Golden Triangle Link is really impressive. But one of the things that I enjoy him talking about is sort of that first point that I made, that the governor is committed to economic development because he knows it's going to increase employment opportunities for Mississippians. And when Joe talks about it in that regard, the kind of jobs that were there before, the kind of jobs that are there now, how there's been such a substantial increase and what people are able to make in that community. You look at the data center, look at the average pay of the jobs at the data center. You're talking about raising tides. I mean, you bring those kind of jobs in. If we stake our claim in that area, we are going to win.
Well, it's absolutely true. And the governor was very clear to me when he appointed me executive director of MDA, he's like, Bill, whatever you do, we need to raise wages and quality of life for families. We want jobs that provide benefits so that we're not paying social welfare programs. I mean, this is his vision. It's if we can increase the number of really good, high quality, family sustaining wages with benefits, you not only create that wonderful opportunity for a family to live and thrive in the state, but you avoid the social costs. And he just stays laser focused on that. And that's been our mandate. And, look, the coast has gotten some great benefits from that. I mean, we've seen about, let's see here, 19 projects on the coast that MDA has been involved with since 2020 of $1.3 billion in capital investment, 1,454 jobs. Last big announcement we had was a $500 million project over in Harrison County near Camorris with PCC, which will be a major new CapEx, huge property taxpayer. They're going to bring 83 jobs. Doesn't sound a lot, but those are six-figure jobs. Okay, those are
the other
jobs.
Hey, Bill, the other point about that actually is that it's by enabling that to happen, you actually secure existing jobs too. I mean, there was no guarantee that without that expansion, that opportunity, that we would have been able to keep them here. I mean, that's something you have to be focused on.
Absolutely right. Camorris has been a major employer in the region for quite some time. I think they got 400 to 600 people out there. I don't know what the latest number is, but that's a lot of folks. And PCC is a critical supplier of feedstock for that plant, and it was getting very increasingly expensive for them to ship the stuff in. So by co-locating there and actually be able to produce that feedstock for the plant, it not only created those 83 or 85 high-paying jobs, but really helped the efficiency and life cycle benefits of the others that are there. And, that's part of it. The foundational to any economic development strategy is to retain what you have and to help grow what you have. That's where most of the jobs come from. And really up until 2023, most of the 60% of the projects MDA worked were business expansions in the state. In 2023, it flipped for the first time where we had 60% of the projects we worked on were new to Mississippi businesses, which I think is fantastic. Now, I think we've reverted back here in 2024. We've started to see much more of a balance, but what a wonderful success story to say, look, we have more people wanting to come here overwhelming numbers. And so we're very proud of that.
Yes, it's a great story. Stennis Space Center, I still think Stennis is kind of out of sight, out of mind. It's an incredible success story in and of itself. The vision of our forefathers to create that large of a buffer zone that would deal with the issue of infringement on the people around it. To create kind of a buffer zone like that was so brilliant. As we move toward commercial space flight, we still got to be aggressive though there, don't we? I mean, we could lose opportunities if we're not smart about it.
Look, it's huge. I mean, what a lot of people don't realize about Stennis is that it produces about $980 million in economic impact. It produces just that's global impact. Within a 50-mile radius of Stennis is about $850 million in economic impact. There's 53 resident agencies at Stennis. There are over 5,200 employees out there. So, those are, and by the way, 40% of those folks come in from Louisiana. Yeah. And here's another thing that's a trivia question. The next highest county is Pearl River County in terms of census for Stennis. The third highest county is Harrison County, and the fourth is actually Hancock. A lot of people don't realize that. So I tell my friends at Hancock County, you need to start building some houses and you need to start developing your community. If you want to keep the benefits in your own county, you need to attract some of those folks over there, and they really need to get after that. Because really that's where the magic happens, is in the economic churn that happens from these jobs. We want to try to obviously attract these missions here, but we also want to make sure that people are living in Mississippi, spending their money here, paying for T-ball, enjoying their life, putting money in the collection plate at church. That's really what makes the community that we all just strive for.
Well, listen, Bill Cork, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you. We'll have to get together more regularly. 4 years is too long because there's a lot to talk about. And you and I, I'd like to really zero in maybe in a upcoming show on your 5 Ps and why you're so focused on that and learn from you about the approach that you're taking. But until then, thank you and congratulations on your success.
Thank you, Ricky. Best to all my friends on the coast.
Ben, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. This has been Bill Cork, the executive director of the Mississippi Development Authority. Listen, have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.